Well, folks, we have zombies history on our hand. Cruppz did it. He managed to play to the first ever round 10,000. This is a monumental moment in zombies history. It took 11 years since the release of Shi No Numa in 2009, but it has finally been done. Congratulations to Cruppz. Cruppz has been someone who has been going for this record for a very long time. He's been playing this map almost on the daily. You might remember Cruppz. He was the one who helped me on my last Shi No Numa video when Riv had previously set the world record of 9,948. Well, Cruppz has came along and beaten that record. So congrats to you, Cruppz. This is an absolutely monumental accomplishment and moment in Call of Duty Zombies history. Now, I've covered high rounds on Shi No Numa quite a lot on my channel. I've technically made 5 videos now, I think, in regards to high rounds on Shi No Numa. So for this reason, I actually debated making this video. I didn't want to make another video rehashing everything that I've said on Shi No Numa before in terms of how it's possible to get to these incredibly high rounds. It just felt like giving the same story as Riv's previous run when he made it to 9,948. I figured, though, a monumental moment like this deserves coverage and necessitates it. So rather than talk about how this is possible, let's go look back in time at the road that led us to Cruppz reaching around 10,000 on Shi No Numa. Detailing the history of zombie world records is quite difficult. It's not like today where you have multiple sites hosting zombie leaderboards and there wasn't really a large community dedicated solely to high round runs like there is today. Hell, in 2020, you can go to Best Buy and buy yourself an Elgato capture card. That's not the case in 2009. You were lucky if you had a Dazzle, that's a throwback word for some of you who've been around for a while, or an HD PVR. And the easiest way to record footage back then was simply just to point your camera at the screen and start recording. And now when you're doing that, recording an entire game feels unrealistic. The oldest record I could find is from July of 2009 by Sizzle Steps. This was roughly 1 month after Shi No Numa had came out. He reached around 2,147. Now, it's hard to be 100% certain that this is the record. I couldn't go back and find any older gameplay on Shi No Numa that was at such a high round like this. And apparently, if you went any higher, your record wouldn't be seen on the PS3 leaderboards. So that might have been also a bug at the time. Sizzle Stepso does have some round 400 gameplay on his channel from June of 2009. Now, I doubt that is the record, but it gives you a sense of that within the first month of the map coming out, people were already pushing this map to really high rounds. So now, I won't say with absolute certainty that this is the record at the time. For the sake of this video having some sort of starting point, though, and for all intents and purposes, we're going to begin our discussion of Shi No Numa world records here with Sizzle Steps around 2,147. Moving on, the next run I'd like to bring up is Yoteslaya's round 1,337. Yoteslaya reached around 1337 in December of 2011, about a little over 2 years after Shi No Numa had came out. Now, this was not the world record, but I feel this video, at least for me personally, was what made me aware that high rounds like this on zombies were even possible. Yoteslaya at the time was one of the biggest zombie creators, so one of the biggest zombie creators on the platform reaching such a high round really helped the mainstream zombie crowd be aware that records like this were feasible, and it put Shi No Numa world records on the radar. It, of course, was never a world record, but it absolutely deserves a mention for its impact on the community. And the impact can be seen in August of 2012, when a person known as Legit Gaming 360 reached around 2,150. In his video, he had explained that Yoteslaya was the inspiration for the run, and Yoteslaya had inspired him. He dedicated the run to Yoteslaya, and what I meant by Yoteslaya making it mainstream was that by such a big YouTuber demonstrating that a run like this can be done, it directly led to somebody like Legit Gaming 360 pushing the record. And like he said, Yoteslaya was the inspiration for this run. This record would stand all the way until December of 2013, when the KSR Chronicles reached around 3,000. Now, this was the first time anybody had reached around 3,000 or higher in zombies, and this record would stand for roughly 6 months. In 2014, we would see an explosion of interest in Shi No Numa records. In June of 2014, Jason Newbold would push the record an extra 1,529 rounds to reach around 4,529. The game would end with the zombies eventually getting the better of him. The record set by Jason Newbold would only hold for a little bit, because in July of 2015, the Yahweh Wizard reached around 5,524 on Shi No Numa. This game is important on the road to around 10,000 because it was the first ever game of zombies to go past around 5,000, so now we're halfway there in July of 2014. A few months later, in December of 2014, that record would get blown out of the water by Santos Bananas, who would reach around 7,112. He would eventually die, though, because of a cheap death from the dogs, and it's a shame he couldn't get any higher, because just a few days later, Frenzy would come in and break the record again, this time reaching around 7,200. Like I said, the record exploded over 2014. Over the course of this single year, we saw the record get broken 4 times, and the highest round ever in zombies rose a total of 4,200 rounds over the course of this single year. Interestingly enough, after this explosion of a year, things would quiet down, and Frenzy would actually hold the record for quite a while. In April of 2017, Insta came along, and he reached around 9,072 on Shi No Numa. This record became quite famous in the zombies community. At this point, there were now established sites dedicated to tracking and maintaining zombie world records, and people could go to these sites and see that Insta not only held the Shi No Numa world record, but the highest round ever in zombies. It made him a legend in the zombies community, and he held this record for 3 years. And this was in spite of the fact that people like Cruppz and KSR were actively making efforts to beat his record. Now, what's interesting about round 9,072 is that, one, it demonstrates that people can push the record incredibly high, but it almost, in a sense, acted like a carrot in front of the community. It said to the community, look how close we were to 10,000. Somebody get this record. This record is for the taking. And in spite of the fact that this carrot hung in front of the zombies community, over the course of 3 years, it stood strong. Then came along Riv 10. Riv was a relatively new face in the zombie world record scene. He had only been streaming for a month or so and exclusively streamed Shi No Numa. He eventually went on a run, though, that carried him all the way to around 9,948. The game ended in tragedy. Much of the zombie community watched with great excitement to see this new face break the zombies world record and potentially reach around 10,000. Sadly, it wasn't meant to be, and Riv would go down. Now, I mentioned that Cruppz had been actively trying to push this record for several months now. In fact, over the past 7 months, he had been going really hard to try to break this record, playing almost every day. As a result, Cruppz had become one of the most knowledgeable people when it came to World at War zombies, and he was making runs at the same time as Riv, just unfortunately didn't set any records. He was also at the same time pioneering what he called the 2020 strat, which was supposed to be a safer strat in terms of game stability and run faster than the most traditional strat by the Flogger. Cruppz eventually went back to using that more traditional strategy, and it paid off, because not only did Cruppz break the world record, but Cruppz has now achieved the world's first 10,000 in zombies. After 7 months of grinding, 9 freezes, 3 errors, and countless restarts, Crupp's hard work paid off, and he will now forever go down in zombies history as the first player to reach round 10,000. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how we got here, starting back in June of 2009 with people claiming world records by pointing their cameras at their televisions, to now people streaming entire games, and still to this day, 11 years after the map came out, exploring new strategies to break world records. So what's next? Well, history is actually still being written. If you're watching this video shortly after the release, Cruppz is actually still going. He has not gone down yet. So the record at the time of this recording is 10,005. But if you want, you can go check out Cruppz's Twitch, which I absolutely recommend you guys do. give him a follow, show him some love, tell him I sent you guys, and watch him, and watch as he continues to set zombies history. We'll see if he can play all the way to the reset. It'll be fascinating to see how far this goes. As it stands right now, though, Cruppz not only has the highest round ever achieved in zombies, but also the Shi No Numa world record, and is the first person to ever reach round 10,000. Congrats to Cruppz, and well done. That's going to wrap things up for this video. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, maybe subscribe for more. We're always covering zombies, so if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you'll enjoy the next one. Have a wonderful day, and bye.